Okay, well, here we have it. This would be in part 2, I guess. The TT gear motors of the 220 to 1 or 1 to 220 gear ratio arrived. So if you want to see the speed difference between this and the 1 by 120, I'll put a link to the first video, part 1, because it has the faster motor in it. I kind of like them both. I like the gun action better on the faster one. I like the walking action better on the slower one. But it is what it is. This one's together. In order to get the room to put all that gun stuff in there, I of course had to flip everything around, which means the batteries then had to protrude out the back a little bit. So built a different battery box cover. Snaps on there like that. Decided to go with a different head, a head that I'd used on a paddle-foot robot, which you can build. You can find a Thingiverse, and you can find videos for it. If I remember when I post this, I'll put a link to that too down below. Hand painted the chrome and the black parts, but printed the rest of it in color. It's a little bit tricky sliding all of the gut works like you see in part 1 up into the body. There's a screw that holds the body on to both sides, and of course the arms can be posed without breaking anything. But one, you have to basically, when you go to insert this into the body, turn it all the way to the right to start. These door hinge parts are going to hit on the frame when you try to get in there. So you go in sideways, you kind of fish it around a little bit till they pop through, then you can slide it on up. Once you have it up, then you can peek in there to align the levers on the feet with the arm levers that come down. You know, line the pins up on that. Once you get all that lined up and you don't have the head on it yet, go ahead and put your screws in the body, because you want to make sure you fish all the wires, be the motor wires, and the LED's already soldered to the motor, so there's just 2 wires from the motor. You get 2 wires from the battery box, and make sure that they go all the way over to the side as far as I can to get out of the way. In fact, once I ran them over there, I put a little drop of glue on them to hold them there out of the way. You don't want any of that stuff getting involved with any of the gears or the linkage or any of that kind of stuff. Close this up. Now, these kind of crude springs here, I wound those out of the finest spring wire that I could find, that I could think of. And when I put my thinking cap on and that, where am I going to find something really fine? Because you don't want any more tension there than you need. You want just enough for the doors to close, nothing more. If that mechanism has to fight a really tough spring, you're going to have a problem. So, as I've done before in the past when I needed either clickers replaced in toys or really light springs that I'm going to have to wind myself, I just went back to the old guitar string hack. Now, normally, you would think that just a regular set of strings for, say, a 6-string electric guitar, like maybe Super Slinkies, your E string would probably be, the high E string, would be your smallest gauge. But actually, if you get yourself a set of 12-string strings, your G string is going to have one that's really fat, and it's going to have one that's even smaller than the E string, because that G string is an octave higher, so it's higher than E, so the gauge is going to be lighter. So in the case of this one, green, so on the millimeters it's 0.2, whereas on the E string, for example, it's 0.25. So it's even a little bit smaller. I just took that high G string and wound it tightly around about 3 or 4 times around the 3mm axle shafts that I used, you know, to hold everything together, to wind these little springs. And like I say, they turned out kind of crude, but they work. I'd bring one end out and bent it over so it would dig in there, and the other end out and bent it over that way so that they would be there. Then when I shoved the paper clip axle all the way through all of this, it of course goes through the center of that spring and holds the spring in place. You can buy, like I say, you can buy actual springs, but on eBay and places. but they tend to be a little on the stiff side. Now that one down there that I use for the return, that is one that I ordered off of eBay, and they claimed that it was a 0.2 millimeter wire. That's much bigger wire than this, so it was more than 0.2 millimeter. But it was okay for that center one, returning the gun mechanism. Worked fine for that. What else? Oh, you know, the only negative thing that I've really got to say about the lower RPM, the 220 to 1 motors, here's one taken apart because I wanted to be able to see this. They're geared down to the point where you can't stop the motor. So if there's a jam on the output shaft that can't move, and yet you can't stop the motor, that means it's going to break a gear inside. And I've done this twice, not in this project. Broke one on this project, broke one on the electro robot project. It's always the same gear here. You see this little teeth get knocked off. In fact, in 2 places on this one, because nothing can move here, but you can't stop the motor because it's geared down so much. And that's the smallest tooth gear in the whole thing, so it shears them off. So it's not very child friendly in that respect. Now the faster running 120 to 1 gear ratio has much fatter gears, and you can jam that up and it'll stop the motor without breaking the gears. So I guess if that's a concern, I would use the 1x120 TT gear motor, or the 90 to 1, which would be even quicker yet. The gears in the 45, 48 to 1 are really big. It'd be almost impossible to break those, but those would be really, really fast. So not a good choice for this kind of project. Files will be on Thingiverse, and when they are, they'll be in the description box down below. I haven't had the time yet to put them up, but when I do, you'll find them in the description box down below. I don't think there'll be a build video on this at this time. There just aren't enough of you interested in doing this to make it worth all the time and to print up all the parts and shoot the whole video and all that kind of stuff. It's a big deal, you know. So the files will be there for those of you that like to experiment with it, and use part 1 of this video as your build guide.